Tonight, fentanyl production has moved to the suburbs, hidden labs in family neighborhoods. What investigators discovered reveals a crisis far closer to home than anyone expected.
He spent his days mentoring troubled teenagers. He spent his nights manufacturing enough fentanyl to kill 300,000 people. Johnny Elias was a 59-year-old youth counselor in Auburn, Washington, a trusted figure in his community, a man parents sent their at-risk children to for guidance. But behind the closed door of his suburban garage, Elias operated a fully functional fentanyl laboratory hidden behind a fake business called Bodacious Vitamins LLC. When federal agents finally kicked in the door, they found something that would haunt investigators for months. Sitting on a shelf next to 4 kilograms of pure fentanyl powder was a box of Narcan, the overdose reversing medication that proves one devastating truth. Johnny Elias knew exactly how deadly his product was, and he manufactured it anyway. Over the next 12 minutes, you are going to see how America's deadliest drug operations moved out of Mexican super labs and into quiet suburban neighborhoods. From Washington State to Atlanta to Connecticut, federal agents are discovering industrial-scale death factories operating behind garage doors on streets just like yours. This is the story of the massive takedowns that finally shut them down. The Pacific Northwest is known for its evergreen forest, its coffee culture, and its quiet suburban communities where families raise children and neighbors wave from their driveways. Auburn, Washington sits about 30 miles south of Seattle. It is the kind of place where nothing ever seems to happen. Until November 18th, 2024. That morning, Drug Enforcement Administration agents in tactical gear surrounded a modest residential property. They had been building this case for months, tracking suspicious shipments, monitoring financial transactions, and piecing together the scope of what was happening inside that garage. When they finally breached the door, even veteran agents were stunned by what they found. Johnny Elias had transformed his suburban garage into a pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl manufacturing facility. Industrial equipment lined the walls. Chemical precursors sat in labeled containers. 4 kilograms of pure fentanyl powder waited to be pressed into pills. 4 kilograms does not sound like much until you understand the math. Fentanyl is so potent that 2 milligrams can kill an adult human. 4 kilograms contains enough lethal doses to kill more than 300,000 people. DEA Special Agent in charge, David Reams, would later explain the terrifying arithmetic to reporters. The powder seized from that single garage could have flooded communities across America with enough death to depopulate a mid-sized city. And the man behind it had spent years working with vulnerable teenagers, building trust, offering guidance, and apparently funding his operation. But Washington State was just the beginning. 1,200 miles southeast in the sprawling suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, federal agents were building an even larger case. Their target was a 47-year-old convicted felon named Bartholomew Harralson. And what they would discover would become the largest fentanyl seizure in Georgia state history. On June 5th, 2025, FBI and DEA agents executed simultaneous raids on properties in Atlanta and nearby Douglasville. The evidence they recovered reads like a cartel inventory list. 93 kilograms of fentanyl, 84 kilograms of methamphetamine, 10 kilograms of heroin, 4 kilograms of cocaine. The combined street value exceeded $9.2 million. But the drugs were only part of what agents found. Harralson's operation included 28 firearms, including a fully automatic machine gun, 2 industrial pill presses capable of producing 25,000 pills per hour sat ready for operation, 3 hydraulic presses, $145,000 in cash, and then there was the evidence that federal prosecutors could hardly believe. Sitting on a shelf alongside the machine gun and mountains of fentanyl was a book. The title alone tells you everything about Harralson's state of mind: how to avoid federal drug conspiracy and firearms charges. The irony was not lost on investigators. Here was a convicted felon, already prohibited by law from possessing any firearm, who had apparently studied exactly which laws he was breaking, and then broke every single one of them. FBI Special Agent in Charge, Paul Brown, addressed the media after the arrests. He stated that the scale of this fentanyl operation, run by a convicted felon with a machine gun, posed a grave threat to the entire community. To put the seizure in perspective, the 93 kilograms of fentanyl recovered from Harralson's properties contained enough lethal doses to kill Georgia's entire population 4 times over. United States Attorney Theodore Hertzberg was even more direct. He declared that Harralson's operation was producing enough deadly fentanyl to potentially kill millions of people. Millions. From a suburban garage in Georgia. These aren't isolated incidents. Across America, federal task forces are discovering that the fentanyl manufacturing infrastructure has fundamentally changed. The drugs killing Americans are no longer being pressed in Mexican super labs and smuggled across the border. They are being manufactured in residential neighborhoods, behind garage doors, in houses that look exactly like yours. Industrial pill presses that once belonged exclusively to legitimate pharmaceutical companies are now being shipped directly from Chinese suppliers to American addresses. A single press costing as little as $16,000 can produce between 25,000 and 100,000 counterfeit pills every hour. The manufacturers hide their operations behind legitimate seeming business fronts. Vitamin companies, vape shops, wellness suppliers, anything that explains away the industrial equipment deliveries. Johnny Elias understood this playbook perfectly. Bodacious Vitamins LLC gave him a paper trail for suspicious purchases. It explained the equipment. It justified the chemicals. It made his suburban death factory look like just another small business. His neighbors in Auburn had no idea that the house on their street contained a facility capable of killing hundreds of thousands. The same pattern emerged in East Haven, Connecticut, where 45-year-old Keldon Hinton was running yet another garage-based pill factory. But Hinton's operation added a terrifying new element: the dark web. Between February 2023 and February 2024, Hinton's network shipped over 1,300 packages through encrypted online marketplaces. Anonymous buyers placed orders. Pills were pressed in the Connecticut garage. Packages disappeared into the postal system, and death radiated outward across America. When federal agents finally raided the East Haven laboratory, they discovered something even more dangerous than fentanyl. The pills contained protonitazine, a synthetic opioid that makes fentanyl look almost mild by comparison. Protonitazine is so potent that even experienced drug users have no frame of reference for its strength. A dose that would produce euphoria with other opioids produces cardiac arrest with protonitazine. Hinton's operation had manufactured hundreds of thousands of these pills. 2 industrial presses, recovered from the garage, could churn out up to 100,000 pills per hour. The math is almost incomprehensible. In a single 8-hour shift, that equipment could produce enough pills to kill a small nation. Keldon Hinton was indicted alongside 6 co-conspirators in September 2024. The charges paint a picture of an organized network that stretched from chemical suppliers overseas through encrypted marketplaces and directly into American mailboxes. The federal response to these suburban death factories has been massive. All 3 cases are part of organized crime drug enforcement task force initiatives specifically designed to dismantle cartel-level supply chains. But these operations were not run by cartel members. They were run by Americans who had figured out how to replicate cartel-level production in their own garages. The takedowns came swiftly, once investigators had built their cases. Johnny Elias was arrested on November 18, 2024, at his garage laboratory in Auburn. He pleaded guilty in March 2025 to possession with intent to manufacture and distribute fentanyl, unlawful firearm possession, and money laundering. The firearms found alongside his fentanyl proved he was prepared to defend his operation with violence. On July 29, 2025, Elias stood before a federal judge. Acting United States Attorney Teal Luthi Miller oversaw the sentencing. Assistant United States Attorney Max Scheiner had pushed for 15 years, specifically citing the presence of Narcan in the laboratory. That single box of overdose medication proved beyond any doubt that Elias understood the lethal nature of his product. This was not ignorance. This was not an accident. This was a youth counselor who knew exactly how many people his pills could kill. The judge sentenced Johnny Elias to 11 years in federal prison. Bartholomew Harralson's case is still working through the courts. He was indicted on June 9, 2025, on charges including possession with intent to distribute fentanyl, possession of a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. If convicted on all counts, Harralson faces 40 years to life in federal prison. His book on avoiding federal charges apparently did not help. The evidence tables from these raids tell a story that federal agents see repeated across the country. Pill press equipment arranged next to stacks of cash, firearms positioned for quick access, chemical precursors lined up like ingredients in a deadly recipe, and always behind it all, the facade of legitimacy, the fake business registration, the normal-looking house, the neighbor who waves from the driveway. These cases reveal a supply chain that has evolved beyond what law enforcement anticipated even 5 years ago. Chinese manufacturers sell pill presses through online marketplaces with minimal oversight. Chemical precursors ship through commercial channels that rarely inspect small packages. Dark web marketplaces connect suburban manufacturers with customers across the country. The United States Postal Service unwittingly delivers death to doorsteps nationwide. The scale of the threat is almost impossible to comprehend. The fentanyl seized from just these 3 operations contained enough lethal doses to kill millions of Americans. Federal investigators acknowledge a troubling reality. These are only the operations they have discovered. How many similar laboratories remain hidden behind garage doors in suburban neighborhoods across America? How many vitamin companies are actually pressing pills? How many trusted community members are living double lives? Johnny Elias spent years earning the trust of vulnerable teenagers. He counseled them through difficult times. He mentored them toward better futures. And every night he returned to his garage to manufacture the very substance killing young people across America at record rates. The federal agents who raided that Auburn property will never forget what they found. Not just the drugs, not just the equipment, but that box of Narcan sitting on the shelf. It was evidence that this man knew. He understood the mathematics of death he was creating, and he did it anyway. These suburban death factories represent a new front in America's fentanyl crisis. The enemy is no longer just across the border. The enemy is behind the garage door of a house that looks exactly like every other house on the street. The enemy might coach Little League, might attend community meetings, might spend his days helping troubled kids, while his nights belong to something far darker. The massive federal takedowns in Washington, Georgia, and Connecticut have disrupted 3 major operations. Hundreds of thousands of lethal doses will never reach American streets, but the pill presses keep shipping from overseas. The dark web marketplaces keep connecting buyers and sellers, and somewhere in a quiet suburb, behind a normal-looking garage door, another operation is probably running right now. The question is not whether federal agents will find more suburban fentanyl laboratories. They will. The question is how many people will die before they do.